the biggest mistake people make is that they believe or they think that the hardest part is actually doing the work. However, that is not the case. The hardest part is rebuilding after you actually have stopped. And that's because every time you break that promise and then you think that you will do something and you don't make it, it becomes harder to establish that trust within yourself. You don't only lose the progress that happens, you also lose that trust. You know how it goes, the cycle. That's when it starts. To Monday is this is it. That's when I'm changing, or this is when I'll change. And you're motivated and you go hard and you do the work, you eat clean, and then you do the proper maintenance and you start reading, and then you think that you become unstoppable. And then life happens and then you miss what it takes. Like is one day and then another, and then you tell yourself that you'll come back right on it and you restart. However, that does not happen. And that's the problem. That kind of does, it's not that you missed, the problem turns into a momentum, and that moment is it kills your identity. And that's what it takes to just break that cycle. There was a time where I decided back in my 20s that I was gonna start to work out and get the body that I actually wanted and to feel and get in great shape and build that identity from that person. And then I started doing that, but then however, like life got in the way and the life cycle started to shift and my priorities weren't on that point. So that ultimately made me stop. And then I started again. However, this time becomes more humbling. However, because it just takes a lot more to restart than rather than stop and restart rather than just get consistent. And that's when the weight of it all kind of comes down, and what it takes for your energy to come up and what it was needed, it takes a whole lot more. This is where the discipline kind of shows up and keeps that maintenance consistent. Therefore, you are charged and in your moment. Every restart has a charge and it's more physical, and this is when you lose your conditioning toward that, the effort and what it takes to make that. If you're working out at the gym, it's building that muscle. If it's reading, it's mentally exploring and learning about certain things that makes you go. And mentally and spiritually, that's when you lose confidence. And it's because confidence is not built by just thinking positively about things. Confidence is built by actually showing the evidence that you have done it. And every time you break that promise to yourself, this is when things break. You start saying, when I'm going to, or what am I going to do about this or something, instead of actually channeling that promise and fulfilling that evidence toward yourself. The goal isn't about perfection, it's more about continuation, and that's continuation of the progress. And this is when one person that does 10 minutes of training is worth a lot more than someone who just does like train for a week or two and then being inconsistent about it and stop training for months thereafter. So this is when the compounding effect takes over, because once you compound your efforts by being consistent, this is when you invest your time wisely, and this is where you can get significant amount of results during that process. And This is where you channel your power, is by not showing up consistently, and this is where your identity starts forming into the best way possible. Your future isn't created by one massive decision. It's created by multitude of small decisions and repeated ones that you continue on choosing. And this is when you stop looking for the perfect condition or momentum in your life and you start applying more of yourself. This is when you become and stay in motion. And you don't just become someone who's good at just starting over. You just become someone who's consistent and therefore unstoppable.